Chapter 10. The Guardians in the Guard, there is a motto that says, "Your soul is your weapon." It is not metaphorical. New Guardians must undergo a ritual to join each squad. During this ritual, each captain inscribes runes developed by Cyrus to draw out a person's soul. This releases vast amounts of essence and power. These runes are combined with materialization and elemental runes. The warrior's personality forges a unique weapon for each guardian that can unleash techniques without the need to inscribe runes. In real combat, there is no time to stop and draw detailed runes and wait to activate them. Thus, this method enables active members of the organization to have a variety of attack and defense techniques at their disposal. There are many types of weapons. Even a paintbrush can be dangerous in the right hands. The day of the weapon ritual requires deep meditation and concentration. Each person's experience is unique because they must carefully consider how their new weapon will enhance their fighting or acting style. Typically, simple single-piece weapons are materialized. However, there are extreme cases like that of Lieutenant Ryan, whose soul forged two highly complex pistols. This demonstrates how exceptional some members are. Each Guardian's inner journey took place privately in their room. Max, of course, needed his mentor's wisdom to avoid mistakes. "Maximilian," the old man said, "I see you have doubts about this." "That's right," Max replied. "I can create weapons myself. Do I still need to undergo this ritual?" "You've already taken the first step. You're gradually developing your style with Umbra. We still need to work on it, but you're on the right path." "It would be ideal if my soul could forge a shield, don't you think?" the boy commented. "You can create a shield," Achilles told him. "You've grown a lot, and you're capable of doing what these people do. But remember, they can't do what you can. That's your greatest advantage." "Now I'm part of the first squad. There's a lot of pressure on me," Max said. "I think it's good they have you close after what happened a couple days ago with the infiltrator," the mentor remarked. "This guy Bastil must know a lot about Umbra," Max began analyzing. "He must be the one I ran into just before I found you," Achilles reminded him. "And yes, he seeks power. His ambition is more than evident. Never let him take the shadow." "It would mean the end of everything I want to protect. I won't allow it," Max said determinedly. "It's time for you to go," the sixth bearer mentioned. "Just remember to stay firm and true to yourself." The former members of Group 3 entered the 4th Squad's research center. There was a special room designated for the weapon forging ritual. Several runes had already been inscribed in the center, forming a circle large enough for a person to stand in. Michaela was the first to begin. As she stepped into the circle, the runes began to glow and she immediately fell to her knees, motionless. Her friends wanted to help her, but they were stopped and told that it was all part of the ritual. Captain Heracles stood in front of Michaela, crouching to her level to inscribe the necessary runes. He started from her upper chest and moved clockwise to form a smaller circle. At the midpoint, coinciding with the location of a person's soul, he inscribed the final rune, a 4-pointed star. When he activated all the runes, a powerful light emanated from Michaela's chest, and an astonishing energy filled the room. She screamed as her essence manifested. Her arms began to move, and with great effort she directed her hands toward the source of power. Finally, she reached the origin of the light. Using all her strength, she pulled out her forged weapon, a pair of fighting chakrams. They still glowed intensely and would appear natural in a few hours. After the ritual, Michaela felt motivated and joyful, not exhausted, and ready to begin her squad's operations. Next were Violet and Madame Lily. They repeated the same process. Violet possessed a beautiful floral-detailed dagger. For her sister Vivian's turn, she forged a thinner, shorter dagger like a sharp pencil. After much effort, Peter finally materialized a double-edged sword suited to his speed of attack. Max was unsure of what would happen. Commander Jacob waited for him, and when Max tried to step into the rune circle, the shadow formed a barrier that prevented him from entering. He couldn't set foot inside because a force held him back. Chains of darkness shot out from his body, anchoring him to the ground. Umbra did not want its bearer to use another element besides itself. Not even the captains could break the chains or move Max, which made the ritual impossible. Max took a deep breath and manifested his power again in the form of a katana, which was still not fully defined. Traces of shadow emitted from its back, and only then could he free himself from the chains and move again. Captain Louis immediately began taking energy samples and extracting data from the materialized shadow. To him, no one else existed in that place. He was too excited to uncover more secrets of Umbra. He muttered to himself and ordered anyone nearby to continue the research. He became upset when Max dissipated his katana, but the commander prevented him from making a scene. "You're not allowed to conduct your experiments yet, Louis," Jacob scolded. "I'm sorry, Commander," the captain apologized fearfully. "I got carried away for a moment. I'll request permission again to conduct my research. The boy can now create things at will, and that's very interesting." "He needs more practice," the commander stated. "Everyone, back to your squads." Only Max and Jacob were left in the room. The young man was deeply ashamed of what had just happened. He thought he had let his captain down and didn't deserve to be in the squad with the organization's most exceptional members. With his head held high but his gaze faint, the young man apologized. "I'm sorry I couldn't complete the ritual. If I have to return to the academy, I'll understand." "Max," Jacob said kindly, "remember that we're here because we're special, and you're one of the most unique." "I think it's the same with elemental affinity," the boy said. "Umbra molds itself to my current energy, so I can't forge my weapon." "Excellent deduction, boy," the commander praised. "Now that your power level is higher, the shadow must reject external energy elements. In this case, it would be my runes and soul essence. The advantage is that you can materialize objects at will, and your attack the other day was very powerful." "Who are the Path members?" Max asked instinctively. "5 years ago, the guard suffered a heavy blow," Jacob began. "A former member of the first squad conspired with others to take over the organization. He wanted to involve the Terrestrials directly by conquering them, but he was stopped. We thought he had died, but based on recent events, we must prepare for another attack. I fear that this time you are the target." "I won't let them take Umbra," Max asserted. "Together, we will stop them and prevent the Path from succeeding," the commander replied. "Well, it's time for you to join your comrades and learn your new roles. From this moment on, your training will be on a personal level, and how far you go depends only on you." "I'll give it my all," Max concluded. He had never been to the first squad before. It was in a small room next to Jacob's office. The room had a table with 5 chairs and screens displaying different locations in the city and at headquarters. They waited a few minutes in an oddly comfortable silence until the other members arrived. First, Ryan entered, followed by Sasha, and finally Thomas entered with a big smile. "Welcome to the first squad," Thomas said. "Thank you," Max replied nervously. "The last mission was a success, Master," Ryan cut in. "We recovered the demonic invocation texts and eliminated several possessed individuals." "The Path seems to be seeking dark sources of power," Sasha continued. "In the texts, we found that there are objects with energy capable of rivaling that of an angel or a demon king. According to the 5th squad, mystical objects are being mobilized for a clandestine auction, and Lady Didi will be present," Thomas added. "This is how we'll proceed," Jacob said. "The 4 of you will go to the auction. Together with the other squads, we'll surround the area. We'll try to stop Didi and her influence. I suspect she's no longer acting on her own." "Bastil," Ryan murmured. "That's right," Jacob commented. "Since his failed incursion, we know that the Path has only pursued control over subversive groups. Now we're sure they want power to conquer everyone. Max is their target. If they gain more allies, they could draw too much attention and reveal our world." "I'll organize the attack, Master," Ryan said, and then left. "I'll go train," said Sasha, exiting the room. "Thomas, please update our new member on what's happening," the commander instructed. "It will be my pleasure, Master," Thomas replied with a big smile. Jacob went to his office to take care of business while the 2 men sat down. Thomas explained the squad's activities again with great energy. They gathered information and selected missions involving high-level demons enchanted objects, and dangerous mystical creatures. When they weren't on a mission, they met to give reports and practice combat formations. The captain was always with them, guiding them every step of the way to ensure they stayed well synchronized. Ryan didn't allow mistakes, and Sasha was the most competitive. At the academy, Max learned the basics of essence control and battle techniques, but now everything was on a higher level. In the world between worlds, small organizations and groups wield influence to gain control and selfish benefits. The terrestrials are just pawns or currency. They kidnap people to extract their souls or feed terrible creatures. Those who have awakened their souls with bad intentions seek ways to gain more power and resort to demonic possession. They make pacts with the infernals to receive less pure versions of demons who were once dark angels before their fall from heaven. Upon death, their souls belong to the demons and serve as a source of energy. It's all a selfish transaction. Max asked about the path and Bastil, so Thomas, in a subdued tone, recounted what had happened. It all started a few years ago when Thomas was still at the academy. It was difficult for everyone to overcome, especially Lieutenant Ryan. The only person he considered a friend had betrayed and manipulated him to carry out a macabre plan. They wanted to prove that they were superior and should rule the world. They say that about 30 years ago, a fire baby was born. Unfortunately, his mother couldn't withstand his energy and was consumed by flames. This child was feared by all. His soul was out of control. He would suddenly burst into flames without burning. People tried to save him using all traditional means because they believed he was the devil's son, come to fill the world with suffering and fear. Fortunately, Commander Jacob and the guard rescued him. They erased all traces of him to avoid suspicion and raised him like everyone else. He always kept to distance himself from the others. The other children would lose consciousness when he was near. He had to train and study alone, with the captain's support, of course. They named him Ryan Tyson. His talent was undeniable. Even as a child, he was assigned to the research squad. There he developed the wine-colored trench coat that helped him control the magnitude of his essence and get closer to others. He then moved to the intelligence department, where he carried out very effective actions thanks to his skills in gathering information. He also gained knowledge about the terrestrial world that he could never have otherwise known. His medical techniques are impressive. He was about to become the squad's lieutenant, but he declined in order to learn to fight alongside Captain Heracles. Ryan is one of the few who has landed a real blow on Heracles. That's how Ryan joined the first squad at age 12. Bastil was also in that squad and was known as a charismatic young man. He knew how to connect with people and had a natural charm befitting a great leader. To Ryan, he was like an older brother and helped him further develop his talent. They completed missions with 100% effectiveness and were undoubtedly the pride of the guard. Another highly skilled member of that squad was Carter Weston, Sasha's older brother and guardian. They were both abandoned as children. Carter raised and cared for Sasha until they were recruited by the organization because they both showed a very strong soul essence. At that time, the lieutenant was Eben, one of Jacob's first apprentices. Together, they formed the best squad of all time, according to some. 13 years later, they had become living legends. They prevented many dangers, one of which was a powerful group of infernals intervening in our plane. Order and balance reigned during that time, at least in our reality. The terrestrials were always embroiled in political and economic conflicts that were not worth mentioning. No one ever suspected Bastil's true intentions. One day, while training with his best friend Ryan, Bastil interrupted the fight to speak with him about the terrestrials' lack of appreciation for the guard's protection. The other young man, somewhat confused, tried to remind Bastil of their core values and the principles of their work. Bastil was so tired of it that he questioned Jacob's leadership. He believed that they should take action and not allow the terrestrials to do as they pleased because there would only be peace if they were in control. For over a decade, they had demonstrated this by eradicating threats hidden from the public and living in the shadows, something he found unfair. This was the first time he had mentioned the word path. He asked Ryan to join him in guiding everyone onto the best path. Together, they would convince the old man to hand over command and execute a meticulous plan to take over everything. They would be absolute rulers. Ryan immediately refused. It didn't seem like a good idea to him. He tried to convince himself that it was all a joke, but Bastil's gaze revealed his intentions. They had no choice but to confront each other. However, it was too late. The seed of doubt and ambition had already taken root in the guard. Many of the charismatic young man's followers began attacking the headquarters, causing noticeable damage. Nothing like this had ever happened before, so there was no protocol to follow. The commotion was the secret weapon of the rebels, and although the captains did their best to control the situation, they suffered many losses. At that time, an elusive enemy emerged, a mercenary who stole powerful objects and vital information. He was called Whiteface. He wore all-black attire and a white demon mask. That day, he infiltrated the headquarters with Bastil's help. Carter tried to stop him but was killed in front of his younger sister. From that day on, she swore revenge. That's why she is preparing to take the life of the man who took everything from her. The fight between Ryan and his former friend continued. Eben, upset to see his comrades fighting, tried to intervene. Bastil stabbed Eben in the heart. Ryan's rage went out of control and his soul burned. He used all his firepower to beat Bastil. With a powerful explosion, Ryan made sure that Bastil would never harm anyone again, much less carry out his plan to conquer everything. Since then, something inside him has died. He no longer trusts people and is always on guard. He isolated himself to prevent anyone from taking advantage of his strength. After that incident, the guard became stricter and more cautious. All of this was part of Bastil's plan. He had started a very dangerous war. Max understood the words that Sasha had told him on the day he arrived at the guard. She had assured him that she wanted to be stronger in order to face her brother's killer. However, protecting others made no sense to Sasha because the beautiful guardian no longer had anyone important by her side. What would she do once she achieved her goal? Max couldn't help but think about it, feeling great sadness for Sasha and Ryan. Like them, he felt alone. Returning to his conversation with Thomas, Max asked him how he came to the organization and how he survived the attack 5 years ago. Thomas Chadburn had been an active boy since childhood. At 9 years old, he ran away from home to escape the abuse of his irresponsible, addicted parents. On the streets, he had to fight for food and a place to sleep. He was always the one to start fights and never gave up. As he grew older, he realized he was stronger and faster than others, as if the wind were always on his side. He took over one of the city's suburban blocks and kept the younger ones safe. One day, a terrible demon roamed the area looking for food. The young leader did everything he could to protect his friends. He was badly hurt, but he saw a group of 3 men and a boy who were almost his age easily deal with the monster. Impressed by their strength, he followed them to an alley with engraved runes. Before they left, he asked them to teach him how to defend himself and his friends. Lieutenant Eben recognized his potential and brought him to the guard for training as a warrior. 5 years ago, Thomas had just finished training at the academy and was ready to join a squad. However, weeks before the ceremony, chaos ensued. One of his classmates began talking about their supposed superiority and said that they should rule and anyone who disagreed would be killed on the spot. He attacked them and unfortunately killed one of the girls. Thomas had no choice but to stop him by force to prevent him from harming the younger students. He couldn't believe who was behind it all, Bastil. His hero had killed his lieutenant, and if it weren't for Ryan and the captains, Bastil might have achieved his goals. Thomas had to wait 2 more years for his promotion ceremony. Sasha passed on her first attempt a year before Thomas, which helped him decide not to let such a dangerous situation happen again. Determined, he joined the first squad, fulfilling his mission every day. He gets close to everyone and evaluates them to detect future threats. He roamed the halls and rooms of the guard, keeping an eye on each member so that no one would dare attack them again. Max understood why the captains had personally trained him at the beginning and why someone strong was always near him. Their goal was to prevent any attacks and avoid putting the people of the guard at risk again. He was grateful for what Thomas did. It couldn't have been easy to tell them everything, but it was necessary to be aware of the Path's intentions. They had to stop the Path before they accumulated more power. Commander Jacob returned to the room and informed them that the mission would take place in 2 days at dusk. The next day, they would conduct an attack practice to integrate the new member into the formations. He would have to adapt to them. For the rest of the day, Max completed his physical training. In his mind, he practiced with Achilles, who had shown him how to better manifest the shadow. His mentor still had the advantage in combat because Max moved slowly. He didn't know how to use a weapon of that style. "Maximilian," Achilles said, "I can feel more strength in your attacks, but you lack knowledge and naturalness. You must make that katana an extension of yourself." "I've never handled one before," Max replied, feeling a bit frustrated. "You should know by now that you possess the knowledge of masters who have mastered the art of the sword," the old man scolded. "Garland and Motoki," the boy quickly recalled. "Vasilios was a skilled warrior who developed many battle tactics in his time. You can use his knowledge too," the mentor finished. The meeting with Garland was short but enriching. Garland taught him how to lift the weapon and instilled in him the idea that a sword is an instrument of protection and that he should never attack out of fear. "If you doubt, you will fail," he said. Vasilios trained him to assess his surroundings in battle, face multiple enemies, and conserve strength and energy when using the shadow. The lessons with the previous bearers were very enlightening. Motoki reacted differently than the other two. He defined the katana more seriously, as a part of his soul that he had to show respect and care for. If that was the weapon that had chosen him, then he would dedicate himself wholeheartedly to perfecting the art of the single-edged sword. Kuroki showed him his katana. It was very similar to Motoki's, except it was a few centimeters shorter. Kuroki taught Max the basic stances and made him repeat an elementary cutting motion for about 2 hours so that his arms would get used to the weight and shape of the weapon. After perfecting the cutting motion, he learned the fighting style Motoki created. Motoki called it Shadupasu, or the Path of Shadow. It had 6 modes of attack and 6 modes of defense. When used effectively, no warrior could defeat him.